Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining today's Retirement Genius Brainstorm webinar. I'm your host, Chris Orestis, president of Retirement Genius. Today, we're going to be talking about the generational wealth tsunami and the massive, unprecedented level of wealth transfer that's about to hit this country, and some estate planning strategies to incorporate into your practice to make you an invaluable asset, an invaluable solution provider for families across multiple generations that will put you in a very good position to help people navigate this very important process. Retirement Genius is an information and resource platform that focuses on helping people build and live a well-balanced retirement. Our focus is to provide information and resources on finance, health, and long-term care, and lifestyle. It's our belief you need to bring these three things together to build that well-balanced retirement so that people can achieve the ultimate goal of retiring like a genius. So let's talk about the current state of wealth transfer and estate planning. And as we know, everybody has the goal to retire comfortably, securely. We all work many, many years to build income, save, invest, possibly launch businesses, be integral in companies that we work for. And over time, we acquire valuable assets that, when you bring it all together, creates what we hope to be a valuable estate that we can live a secure retirement on, but also to pass on something, legacy and resources to future generations. And what we're looking at right now is an unprecedented transfer of wealth between generations. The silent generation and baby boom generation are over the next 20 years transferring almost $85 trillion of assets, income to the next generation. It's an amazing amount of money that is begun changing hands. The majority of it will go to personal heirs, 72.6 trillion, and a not insignificant number of 11.9 trillion will go to charities. But not enough people give thought to that eventual transfer of wealth. They are more focused on today, more focused on their retirement. And I find, alarmingly, a lot of people, very surprisingly, will get to an advanced stage of life and quite frankly pass away without a will, without life insurance, without all the appropriate things in place they need to ensure the security of their loved ones and a smooth transfer of wealth and legacy to the next generation. And because of this, a lot of mistakes are made. There's poor planning, lack of documentation. Again, whether people have wills and trusts or they just have them misplaced. They don't have them in a central location. The way their retirement accounts are set up can be off, and that could create some expensive mistakes. There's a lot of lost opportunities I see with gifting and estate tax management, and oftentimes a lot of misunderstanding around opportunities to use insurance and annuities to help benefit estate planning and wealth transfer. This is where advisors can play such a critical role in ensuring that there is a smooth transfer of wealth, of legacy, of estate planning, and through that, connecting the generations that you're working with into a seamless process you're involved with, you can be involved with that will translate over into future opportunities by continuing to be a part of their own estate planning. So as you're working with one generation to set them up correctly, you can be putting yourself in a position to be very helpful and be a very trusted advisor to the next generation as well, who would want to emulate a well-organized, well-executed estate plan and wealth transfer. You want to be creating meaningful connections with the heirs. This gives you an opportunity through this process, not to just be working with and talking to the owner of the estate, but to be connected into the heirs and connect them into the process. You want to make sure you're assisting everybody with understanding what's involved. In essence, teaching some financial literacy. Again, showing yourself to be a valuable part of the equation, not just somebody who's trying to sell products, but somebody who has knowledge, wisdom, experience, and provides solution. You want to be a guide to resources to help make this happen. Partnering with a good estate planning attorney, partnering with a solid accountant to help put the team together. But you're the quarterback of helping to make this happen, to optimize the estate plan. This puts you in a position to help them get ahead of problems before they happen. You want to try and eliminate problems before they show up, then be part of that guiding the transfer of wealth to the next generation and putting yourself in the position to continue to be a valuable resource. So let's talk about some wealth transfer strategies you want to have top of mind and be ready to discuss and incorporate into what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, if you're an insurance advisor, if you're a financial advisor, what you do is so integral to the process. It's the foundational pieces of an estate plan, of wealth transfer. And you are in a very good position to be a quarterback in this process. Starting with wills and trusts, making sure people have an up-to-date will in place, and if they having the appropriate trusts that are set up to protect and manage the transfer of money and assets. It amazes me how many people blow this off and end up putting families in a very tough position where when they pass away, they end up intestate. And you want to avoid engaging a family, engaging a probate court intestate, because now the state is going to figure it out. The state's in charge of what's going to happen here, instead of somebody's wishes being executed by being clearly laid out and documented, and doing it before somebody's in a position where they're incapable of doing it because for health reasons, or they passed away before they got to it. This is where it starts, and where you as the quarterback can start the ball rolling here. From here, you want to make sure that where there's IRAs, that they're set up so that the IRAs can be inherited correctly. You can set up IRA trusts for the beneficiaries so that if there's a variety of beneficiaries who would benefit from IRA accounts, that is set up correctly so that the accounts continue to grow and maximize, and then the money is distributed in the most tax efficient manner possible. Then as early in the game as possible, executing a smart gifting strategy. Remember, any person can receive $15,000 a year in gifting money on an individual basis from an individual, and you can double that for a couple. So a married couple can gift $30,000 a year to the people that are in their estate to help reduce the estate tax impact later, and put some of that estate money into family members' hands today. That you want to make sure that you're always cognizant of the lifetime gifting cap, because people make the mistake of doing things like they're gifting money, but then they also give, say, their children money for a wedding or a down payment for a house or for a college education. Well, that would also be incorporated and considered part of the gifting money. So you've got to keep straight what you're giving your children when it comes to gifting, so that you're not exceeding the gifting limit on an annual or a lifetime basis. But by doing it right, you're reducing the estate tax impact at the end. Also, for businesses, And the goal of transferring the ownership of a business, the use of a family limited partnership puts the business owner in a position where they can add their family members as partners and keeping themselves as the managing director of a limited partnership, where the family partners are realizing value in the ownership of the business within the estate tax guidelines. And so when they eventually take over the business, they have minimized the impact of estate taxes on that business transfer. So remember, a family limited partnership, when part of somebody's estate planning involves the transfer of ownership of a business, is a very valuable tool. And then keep an eye on the use of GRATs, which is an annuity trust that can generate a minimum level of income and interest to the grantor until the remainder of that money can transfer to the beneficiaries tax-free. So using a GRAT, an annuity trust, is another way to manage the impact of taxes on money that would transfer as part of an estate wealth transfer. And then intra-family loans, if you're paying the minimum federal interest rate on an intra-family loan, that's going to be considered a gift if it's forgiven, and then you avoid taxes. So by paying a minimum amount of interest that's set by at the federal level, you keep it within the gifting limits and avoid tax problems on money that's given from one family member to another by using the intra-family loan strategy. Then insurance, an often overlooked part of estate planning. It's most often looked at as critical to preventing immediate financial impact in the passing of a loved one, as it would impact family members. But as a life insurance policy is building up value, and then the death benefit pays out to beneficiaries, this can become actually a critical part of estate planning, not only in creating wealth in an estate. And I have seen plenty of times where a significant payout from a life insurance policy became a major portion of what the estate was, realized tax-free, but also can be used to counteract the impact of estate taxes. Remember, also, some policies can be converted to cover critical illness and long-term care. And there's also the potential of, if a life insurance policy is no longer going to be held onto by the policy owner, then looking at a life settlement as a way to add more money to the estate, more income to the estate while that person is alive, is another option. Always, if you're going to abandon a policy, either surrender it or lapse it, a person should always be looking at the life settlement option first to see if that's something they would qualify for. Then with annuities, obviously using annuities is a way to set up a guaranteed income stream for the remainder of a beneficiary's life. And it's also a way to protect the money from being squandered, right? By locking that money up, establishing the payment stream that makes the most sense for the beneficiary, you're protecting money to be used in the best interest of the person who would be receiving that income. And it's obviously a vehicle, particularly in a time like today with some economic downturns, to protect money from the potential losses in the market. With guaranteed minimum rates of return, that money's protected, and that money's not only protected from the market, but protected from ill-advised investments and poor spending. You don't want to see money that's transferred squandered. And if there's some concern about who might be receiving money and what they would do with it, this is a way to still exert a level of control and protection of that money for a beneficiary who might not be able to act in their own best interest. So when it comes to estate planning, remember, it's the duty of every American, and I always feel this way about anything particularly that involves taxes. Every American's duty is to build up as much wealth as they can to live as secure and fruitful a retirement they can, and then if possible, to pass along as much wealth as they can using every legal means available, particularly to minimize the impact of taxes. As I always say when it comes to taxes, it's every American's duty to pay the taxes they owe, but not one penny more. And you need to use the information and tools that you have available to you to work with families to make that possible. Now, another strategy that we highly recommend where agents can play a very important role is in creating something we call a death file. And I can tell you, I have one in my office in a location where people know where it is in my family. If something were to happen to me today, if I were to walk out the door and get hit by a bus, my family knows where a file is sitting that contains all the important information they would need to be able to administer to either my incapacitation or my demise. And everything is in one place. They are not going to scramble and dig through shoe boxes and scraps of paper and missing documents, missing insurance policies. I have it all in one place. And the way I have it organized and what I advise agents to work with their clients to make sure they have in hand, which again puts you in a position where you are a trusted advisor, not just somebody who's trying to sell them a product. You want to make sure that they're in a position where anything that happens to them is not going to put their family at a disadvantage because now they don't know where things are. The planning for the eventuality of any kind of death, incapacitation, long-term care needs that creates an emergency environment it's critical that the family knows where not only documentation is, but how to follow that person's wishes. Have it all mapped out. So creating a death file, it's a very smart planning tool that has everything in it that's going to lay it out for the family in one place so that their financial needs are taken care of, their financial wishes are taken care of, and also their healthcare wishes, their directives, that kind of a thing. So the first item in a death file is contact information for doctors, attorneys, financial advisors, accountant, and first and foremost, for you as the quarterback, as the key advisor who helped construct this and is playing that important role to help the family navigate a potentially a situation that's potentially impacting them in an incapacitated state, or they've passed away. The second item in the death file is written instructions around specific requests for care, such as the preference of type of care, the location of care, the type of caregiver, specific caregivers. So if this is somebody who's going to need long-term care, memory care, something that is going to be ongoing, and they're maybe not in a position to speak for themselves and articulate exactly what they're looking for, well, you're going to find it laid out here in the death file. You want to make sure that medical power of attorney, who's naming the person to manage their healthcare needs, a trusted family member, somebody who can speak for and understands what the desires of that person is when it comes to their healthcare situation, doctor's contact information, specifically written, executed medical directives such as a do not resuscitate order, a do not intubate order. You want to make sure these are in place so it isn't left up to guesswork. You want to also make sure that the financial power of attorney has been named, that paperwork's in place so that that person's ready to handle the financial matters as required. And oftentimes we see people name one person to be the financial power of attorney, another to be the medical power of attorney. They can be both the same person, but we oftentimes see those duties split up between two or more different people. Death file item number 5 is making sure now that the proper will and trust documents that have been executed and that include any special instructions for things like how to administer personal effects, various forms of property that are outside of the standard will and trust documentation is in place. Again, so important that this is in the file. It has been executed, it has been filed, so that if a person passes away, they are not dying intestate and the family is then being forced to navigate the probate court, which will take months and cost thousands of dollars that could be avoided by getting these simple documents in place that do not need to cost thousands and thousands of dollars to have created and executed. There are attorneys out there that will put this together pretty turnkey for somebody with, a relatively straightforward estate profile for the neighborhood of hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. There's really no excuse to not have this in place. Death file item number 6 is mortgage statements and deeds. Anything around real estate that's owned, you want that paperwork in there. You want it in the file so it's easily accessible. Item number 7, make sure you've got a bank statement for all accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts, money market accounts, CDs, any kind of bank accounts. And also, if there's any kind of safety deposit boxes, make sure that information's in there, and even potentially a key to the safety deposit box literally taped to the documentation. Again, any information on mortgages, loans, if somebody's got a reverse mortgage, have just as simple as a statement. Just a monthly statement is enough so that there's awareness of its existence and what institution holds what, and contact information from which they can operate to get more information. You want to have all of your retirement account statements in place. So IRAs, 401ks, any pension statements, any pension paperwork, you want all of that in the file as well. You want to make sure a critical death file item here is information on any health insurance policies, what they have potentially for Medicare coverage or veterans benefits. This is particularly important if the person hasn't passed away, but they're incapacitated. And you want to know what is their coverage? What do we have to work with? And anything regarding life insurance policies, long-term care insurance policies, disability insurance policies, any kind of specialty policies, and anything on annuities. Again, if you can't find the original policies, even having a policy statement in the file alone is enough. You just want to make sure there is at least a breadcrumb trail that loved ones can follow to get to the source and then get the business done once they're talking to whatever institution is holding that particular piece of the estate puzzle. And then number 10, lastly and not leastly, any funeral trusts, any prepaid funeral plans, any final expense policies. Look, funerals can be expensive. And if a family all of a sudden is sitting there needing to cough up $10,000, $15,000 and they're unclear about what the final wishes were for the person, because this has become, a more interesting area now for people to make a decision on. Do they want to be buried in a casket? Do they want to be cremated? Do they want to have some other creative form of disposition of their final remains? You want that to be clear. I mean, do they want to have a specific kind of funeral, a specific kind of event, anything like that? Have it written out, have it in the file so the family has very clear instructions instead of trying to guess and piece it together after the fact. So organizing and clearly communicating what a person wants and what they have to work with is going to eliminate the uncertainty and the mistakes that come from fulfilling the wishes of somebody who's unable to articulate that for themselves, whether they're incapacitated or they've passed away. Once you can't speak for yourself, if you have a death file in place that can speak for you, things are going to unfold the way you want them to unfold. But if you leave it all in a jumble, in a mess, unspoken, unclear, well, your results are going to kind of look like that. There's a big difference between being organized, planned, and clear than being unorganized, not planned, and unclear, and what the final result will be for the individual and for their family, for their heirs, for the disposition of their estate. So estate planning, it's a critical part of planning for and living in retirement. This is a piece that just kind of gets overlooked, gets pushed to the side, kind of, we'll get to that later, no time for that now, but that's a huge mistake because you just never know what's going to happen any given day. So you need to address this now. And as advisors, this is putting you in the position to be involved in the process. You become that valued resource. And this is going to create more opportunities for you because this puts you in a position where you're not just working with the individual, but you're getting into and working with the family, working with other professionals that you're bringing into the picture. This is a great way to establish more credibility for your business, more opportunities for your business, to help more people. And because of the role you play in bringing financial and insurance related products to the table, and what an important foundational role those things play in building and executing an estate, you really are in the position to be the quarterback of this exercise and put yourself where you could be the most valuable player when it comes time to execute. So I want to thank you so much for joining today's Retirement Genius Brainstorm webinar. I invite you to get your copy of our most recent Retirement Genius white paper tip sheet, Generational Wealth Tsunami Estate Planning Strategies. Give us a call, 866-602-5000. Visit our website if you want to learn more, you want to get a copy of today's webinar, today's white paper from the webinar, recording of the webinar. Reach out to us. Go to our website at advisors.retirementgenius.com or our consumer website, retirementgenius.com. Always encourage you to check out our podcast, Retirement Genius, the podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, just type in Retirement Genius and follow us. You'll find us there. We look forward to working with you, talking to you, and hope you'll take today's information, today's resources, put them into practice in your practice, and help people retire like a genius.